All right. We'll go ahead and get started. Thank you guys for coming. This is our Austin Miro community group. And we only had just like a few events so far. And so I'm really excited to see you all here this evening. I have my friend Jamie here, who's a researcher who I've learned so much from just in my time working with her on some things. And I'm super, super excited for her to lead us. I think it's going to be awesome. We're going to do some like group collaboration and stuff like that. We won't put anybody on the spot, but you'll be able to kind of interact with Jamie as she kind of leads us through a few exercises as we explore the collaborative toolkit. The first thing I want to do is this icebreaker. And it's kind of a little bit on topic, but if you go to the section of the board, right under the intro for icebreaker, we're just going to open up to share, maybe a success or failure that you've had around collaboration and why. So go ahead and just take a few minutes. I'll probably put like, 2 minutes on the board, and I'll let you guys go in here and kind of share what you've experienced. Awesome. I'll take a look and kind of see which ones kind of stick out to me. There's a couple over here on success, just about, getting a holistic picture from your team. Creating that alignment can work super well in remote settings. Totally agree. Let's look at some of the failures. It sounds like we've all experienced some failure around maybe not explaining something as clearly as it sounded in our minds, which totally happens to me. Forgetting to hit record. Yep, every time. Awesome. Well, I want to invite you guys to look over at our Miro community. So I'm just going to briefly bring you all to me. And this is kind of a networking space. So for people that attend the community groups regularly, we wanted to get a sense of community, even though we're not meeting together in person. And so this is just a way you can kind of make your own little badge that has, your name and some information about yourself. You can create links at the bottom to your social media. So, as we go through these different sessions, hopefully we'll get to know each other a little bit more and be able to reach out and really lean on each other as we come across different issues that we have, whether it's, trying to facilitate in Miro or, anything else, just knowing who you guys are, where you're from, and a little bit about what you do. So I would love if you took a couple of minutes to do that. I did add a little tip over here to the left. So if you're like me and you can never find your files on your computer and don't want to try to search for them, there's just a shortcut. You can open up your LinkedIn profile and right click, copy and paste. Super easy to get that in there. So would love to kind of know who you guys are and what you do. So I'll give us just like a minute or so to do that, and then we'll get started with our activity. All right, so you guys can kind of keep working on that. I wanted to do one more thing before we got started. So if you come back to our little trail, there's a place where you can kind of start the conversation early. So if there's something that you're hoping to learn or experience during our session today, being able to use Jamie as a resource on, maybe research methodologies or tools or whatever, but if you have anything specifically that you'd really like to see us cover, we can work those in or kind of come back to them at the end. So continue doing the networking stuff if you'd like, or pop in there and go ahead and start the conversation. And while y'all are doing that, I'll kind of give a little intro for Jamie and kind of what we're going to talk about today. So we have Jamie Peets here, and she's a lead UX researcher. And that's here in Austin at a company that shall not be named. Just kidding. But I'm really excited to have her. She's going to kind of walk us through these activities where we're going to learn a little bit about collaboration and different ways we can approach it, different strategies. And we're going to kind of learn from each other today. And so it's all right if you guys need to take a break or you need to walk out of the room. You'll be able to jump back in and we'll kind of show you where we're at. Jamie and I actually worked together on a volunteer project together, and I just learned so much from her on, research and how to apply it, different methodologies. And so I'm really excited about the little nuggets of wisdom that you'll share. Jamie, I'm going to throw it to you, and you can give a little bit more intro or just jump into our activity.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming out tonight. I know we are all probably sitting at computers most of the day, so it means a lot that you're that you're with me tonight. So really appreciate it. Yeah, so I'm Jamie. I work at a financial services company, so love working and understanding human behavior. Really excited to dive into today's topic. Essentially, let me start sharing my screen with you. You can follow along the presentation. Let me get this queued up properly. All right. Let me know if my sound is off, Jara, and I'm happy to adapt.
You're good, Jamie. I can hear you just great.
Awesome. It looks like people are still filling in the what do you want to learn. Should I just allow for some time for that and then dive in?
Sure.
All right. Watching everyone write their answers. No pressure.
Yeah, just adapt your whole presentation and activities on the fly, Jamie.
Yeah, how to activate non-researchers. I like that, and communicate the importance of research. And somebody said yes. Repeat +1, I guess. How to communicate things effectively. Better ways to visualize user research. How do you know when your research is statistically valid? How to communicate when it is qualitative, anecdotal. Specific recommendations for how to synthesize. All right. How to effectively plan. How to turn 0 to 1 user to begin your research.
Nice.
All right, awesome. This is a really good starting point. We won't be able to cover all of these topics. We are, just because we're limited with time. You guys, I wish I could spend a few days with you and we could talk about all of these topics and have like a research therapy session. I would love that. So with that, let's dive in. I'll press play. Hopefully it gets me to the right place. You guys unmute Miro. Okay.
Do you want to share your screen, Jamie?
Yeah, okay. I thought I was sharing. I'm not.
That's all right.
Okay. How's that? In view? No?
I always have screens hidden. Somebody's giving a thumbs up. So mine must be, oh, yep, it always pops up on some random screen. So we're good. I can see it.
Okay, I'm calling this a toolkit today. Thanks for sharing your wins and your fails. I think a lot of us have had varied experience in collaboration. I don't think it's always successful, and I don't think that's a problem. I think it's okay to try new things. And really what we're here to do today is to come up with ideas together on how to make either activities better or different or more meaningful. And really, I'd love for us to come up with our own type of tool set that we can take and use tomorrow. So by the end of this, you really should have some tools that you can put in your back pocket and apply easily. And we're really going to be learning from each other. Feel free to throw any crazy idea out there. This is judgment-free zone. Any idea will go. Feel free to add to other people's thoughts as well. Even if it's a little kernel or small little piece, we can always build on each other's ideas. So I'm excited to see what comes out of this. This is an experiment, so getting really meta on you guys, collaboration on collaboration. All right. So this talk really is to empower us to think differently about our team members and stakeholders and to really get them more involved than they currently are. It's not really about how to teach others to do your job. That's not why we're here today. It's about getting other people to be involved in a way that helps them understand user researchers, but also supports you in your work, right? So trying to find a fine balance where you help people understand just enough so that they can help you and be involved in user research in meaningful ways. This talk is not really geared towards people who don't have established UX research practices at your company. You can leverage some of these collaboration tools, but it's better geared for those who already have buy-in to with their leadership on UX research. And of course, we can't go over every single activity or method. So we really will be collaborating on 3 critical pieces of the research process. And also, like I said before, we're going to take some risks. And when we're collaborating, we're kind of putting ourselves in a vulnerable space. And so today, let's really build off of each other's ideas, like I said before. If you feel like something's silly, you should definitely write it down, and we can build off of your idea. Nobody will laugh at you. Yeah, so the main thing why we're here tonight and why I'm talking about this is essentially, as a researcher, I view myself as somebody who is an action activist. And this is really cheesy, but essentially, as a researcher, I view my job as getting the team to take action. So how can I really drive that action? Well, I'd say that these 3 things here are 3 legs of a stool, right? So if we removed one of these, our stool would not stand up. So when I take one of these out, if I'm not able to align objectives with others, we're not able to learn together because we're not all on the same page. And then it's less likely that action will actually get taken. And essentially, when you have all of these 3 things together, you're able to make better product decisions for the user. I think that's the most important piece, right? Is like we're all properly advocating for the user, and that it's not you as the researcher, it's not your fight to fight, right? This is all of us together to kind of have that empathy and really make those product decisions based off of what we learn from our users, as well as aligning that with business priorities as well, of course. All right, we're going to get to the activities soon. I'm just going to lay the foundation for a little bit longer. So just a few things to consider as we're moving forward. There's 3 things that really play into what activities we choose. I think each project is very, very unique in its objectives, and we have to really take that seriously. So the goal of the project can really drive the set of activities that you're thinking about. There are also really a set of constraints that we really need to consider. For example, timelines, we might have vendors or SME schedules, the research tools that we have available to us, access to participants, all of those things, right? So we need to factor in constraints as well as thinking about objectives. And then participants, when I say participants, I mean collaborative participants, but this could also mean literally the people who you are doing research on. So participants, I'll just focus on the group that you're collaborating with first. This is can be really broad, right? Like, is your team on the same time zone? You need to think about that. Is it a remote group? Is it in person? Is it hybrid? What are the personalities in the group? Are there shy people? Are there loud people? How do you manage that? Also, there might be dynamics at play, especially in organizations with typical hierarchies. So how are you going to manage that? How are you going to put checks on that to make sure everyone has an equal voice? So lots of things to consider. So there's a range of activities that are available out there, but how you employ them, you need to be really smart and think about these 3 things, because there's always a cost associated. And so with certain projects, you might do fewer activities because of these 3 things. With other projects, you might have more bandwidth and time, and resources, and so you might be able to fit in more activities. So sometimes you have to pare down activities. Sometimes you have to adapt them and change them. Sometimes you have to throw activities out or come up with new ones on the spot based off of these three things. So this is a really fluid thing that you're always navigating, even throughout a project, as you're gauging, who am I working with? What are the limits? What are the objectives? So yeah, that's fun. So as you're evolving your tool set, you'll get smarter about what you do. And I think that just comes with experience. I'm still trying to figure things out. And I think it's okay to not have everything perfect, right? Just go with what you know and try something new. And if it fails, like just learn together and say, cool, let's do that differently next time, or let's not do that next time. It's okay to mess up. That's the best part about this. All right, so we're about to jump into the first activity. And just to break down the research process, I know all of us our processes might be slightly different, but I'm just going to outline a process that is going to simplify and get us all on the same page. Plan, learn, share, and apply learnings. And within these kind of larger parts of the process, there are subparts of this process as well. And while this looks linear, we know that research is typically not linear, but just for the purposes of this, super clear, super easy to follow. So we will be focusing on these three pieces today. We'll have 3 collaboration sessions, one under plan, which is set learning objectives and hypotheses. The second activity will be on conduct research and analyze and summarize learnings. And the third is how do we take action on those learnings? So if I see a lot of interest in one of these areas, and I'm going to try to focus on it. And if there's less traction in certain other activities, I'm happy to move on. I'm just going to flex and kind of see where this group is at and what we really want to discuss. So feel free to let me know. Okay, I'm not interested in this. Can we move on? You can message me directly in the Zoom chat. But I will be gauging, your responses, and if, activity is kind of lagging, we're kind of bored, I will try to gauge that and try to move us forward, or at least continue to ask questions to make it a little bit more engaging. All right, so much talking. Let's do some stuff together. So let's start with this first part, planning, setting learning objectives and hypotheses, first part. And so just keep in mind this research framework, exists in a larger framework, which is there are other players on your team, right? So you might start with a statement of work, and that might be, or a brief, and then some objectives might be set there, some KPIs, business metrics that you have to follow. And then this comes in, right? This is our UX research body of work. And this is how we might start or engage with the larger process with our team. So I'll just outline 2 activities that you can use. And these are based off of different books and things that I've read out there. I'm going to throw them out just to kind of get us started. And then we're going to start brainstorming together on new ideas. And I'll walk you through that activity when we get there. All right, first activity, assumption gathering. So this is something that I read from 101 Design Methods from Vijay Kumar, and I love this activity. So essentially we start at a project and we get all of our biases out. And one by one, everyone has a few minutes to write on a sticky certain assumptions that they'll make. And this could be about the user group, this could be about the problem statement, anything geared towards the solution, any of those assumptions, throw them all out there. And this is where we really get to see the biases on the team. And it's really helpful because then you can call people out and say, I know where your head's at because of this drill that we did. And essentially what this is it's going to be an evolving thing that you validate or invalidate later. So you can return to this and you can say, hey, we were right on this, we were right on that, we were totally off on that. And you can start to evolve your hypothesis that way. So your hypothesis is always a work in progress. And that's the coolest part, is your hypothesis doesn't have to be right the first time. That's I think the appeal to a lot of us UX researchers is that we're always learning. So that's one exercise. And I'll throw out another one. Here's a learning plan. So this is taken from, I think, Lou Rosenfeld, I think. And this is a little bit more of a structured way to think through how is your team going to work through exploration and learning. So we might start with, okay, what are the questions that we want to learn? What are the things that we actually want to learn? What are our questions? And of course, we want to start with some foundational research, right? We don't want to jump into user research right away when we have secondary research. We have all of these other, things out there, analytics, charts, graphs, stats, all of this stuff that's really going to give us that information. Then we want to come in with something like this once we're a little bit more informed and really start to prioritize what we want to learn and then how we're going to answer it. And so this is where you can really divvy out learning as a shared activity. So I can say, okay, we have this question. How does this user group think about how does a group of swimmers think about competition? Maybe that's an example. And then we would figure out, okay, how are we going to answer it? What are the methods that we're going to do? Okay, we'll do some observations. We'll go read a book about it. We'll talk to this coach who is a swimming coach. And then essentially you can break this out. And this is how you can really start to get your team involved, is start tagging their names on stuff, make it a to-do list. And then everyone's accountable to kind of share their learnings back with the team. And so this is kind of a rough framework, but there's a lot of ways to kind of conduct this activity. So I'll just kind of let it be open based off of kind of your personality and your team needs. Don't just walk people through a chart. That's boring. Spice it up. These activities can take on different flavors based off of your own personality. And so make sure to inject that in there too, make it your own. All right, so those are the first two ideas for activities. And so now what we're gonna do, 5 minutes, we are going to generate additional ideas for this phase of research. So generating hypotheses. And maybe you've thought of some other activities that really meet the same need. Maybe you look at other people's ideas and you build off of theirs. Think about tips and tricks. How would you give advice to somebody facilitating this activity? Are there hacks, shortcuts, pro tips, and maybe some pitfalls to avoid? And then at the bottom, we have space for questions. So if you're like confused about something or you're curious about something, feel free to add that. So what we have here is this piece right here. So where we're going to focus on set learning objectives and hypotheses. We have the two examples that are set right here, just to remind you. And now what we're going to do is come down on the board, and for 5 minutes, you have 5 minutes to fill any part of this board. You have more ideas on the left-hand side, tips and tricks on the right-hand side, and then questions down below. So each activity will look like this. And one way to get different ideas is to start thinking about challenges that you might hit up into. So feel free to articulate those, and then other people can write solutions around those. All right, please speak up if you're confused, and we're happy to answer questions. And can we put 5 minutes? Oh, okay, we have the timer going already. Is that right, Jara? I think so, 4 minutes.
Yep, I got a timer going, Jamie.
Awesome, thank you. Got some awesome answers here, you guys. Thank you for populating this. Okay, this is great. I'm seeing some themes around using a canvas, help tracking things. I think tracking is really important, you know, a discovery tracker. I think what that does is it helps us become really accountable to ourselves and to our team. And it also helps us not forget anything as well. I think that's awesome. A matrix to identify priorities. I think that's similar to that. Really figuring out, you know, what is important to tackle now versus a little bit later. Love that. Okay, sort assumptions in a 2x2 matrix to prioritize. Considering answers, potential variability, impact, risk. Yeah, okay, so this is great. This is a lot more detail that we could add, right, to this approach. So you can customize this learning plan and kind of add additional items that might be relevant to you, throw out certain items that might not be relevant to you. So I love that take. That's great. Research backlog. Yep. So I'm seeing a lot around tracking. One unique comment I see here is start with shadowing processes and asking questions. I thought that was unique in that you're thinking about making sure that you're entering activities with some form of knowledge, right? So maybe you don't even understand the space. So maybe we need to do a little bit of research at the beginning in order to even inform any type of hypotheses. Maybe we have nothing to go on. But essentially, I would start with I like to start with hypotheses just as a starting point so that I know what is my frame of reference, what direction should I even be looking? And that kind of helps direct my research rather than going in completely blind. All right, let's check over here on the right-hand side. Anyone want to share theirs? I'm seeing some hearts over here. I think we can all appreciate the parking lot. Yes, agreed. So making sure that these conversations are disciplined is really, really important. I think it's important to help people feel validated in what they're contributing, but also say, hey, maybe we'll put that on the shelf for now. That's really important. All right. Seeing some other thumbs up. Yeah, I like this, and more categories, right? Like I love that this framework is really flexible. Business challenges, user needs. Do you need other resources like dev to either give you unique perspectives or specific skill sets? Maybe not so much in hypothesis generation, I would say. You're still thinking about exploration, but I like what's being said here. I think it's about unique perspectives. Avoid putting people on the spot. Yeah, that's good. Use stickies on paper or other more confidential ways for people to contribute, especially if sensitive. I think it's important to respect that, right? So if you want equal collaboration, you got to think about dynamics, especially power dynamics. If my supervisor's in the room, I might be less apt to contribute or say to throw out a crazy idea. Totally agree. Time box activities. I love this. You guys, this is great. Try to avoid solutioning. Yes, yes. Control that conversation. Introvert time. Love it. Yes. So thinking about different types of learners and ways of being, yeah, letting people process things on their own versus things that you do verbally. This is great. Does anyone want to share anything? Feel free to unmute yourself. And if you want to share anything new that you've seen here or interesting, I'll give a second or two. Okay. I think there's a lot of themes around being disciplined.
Hey, Jamie, it's Kaya. Can you hear me?
Hey, Kaya.
What's up? This is
Hello.
awesome. Hey, guys, thank you for organizing. This is the first time I'm using this platform, and I'm trying to learn how to use it. It's really cool. I was just going to say, I was looking at some of the input here, and there's a little bit of a theme, it seems like, around like skin in the game. I don't know if that phrase was used, but like engaging others to actually take a stake and answering some of the questions, like getting buy-in in the sense of like we care about this convo, right? Like we want to all be invested, I guess, like if it's iteration or whatever it is. So anyway, I was just wondering whether people have had experiences like that or ways, like practical ways in which they've found that level of like skin in the game optimized, like if that practical ways of getting folks really invested in the topic.
Ooh, I like that. Feel free to unmute yourself if you want to answer and contribute. So just skin in the game, getting people involved in a way that they're engaged and that they're kind of bought into finding answers. Anyone have any thoughts to share on that?
I was the one of the ones that had, getting contributions from other people in your broader product team, whether that's the business or whatever. And the reason that I do that is because I found that they have just as many assumptions or things that they're curious about as researchers. And so for me, it's kind of providing them the framework in which you can kind of take that either raw assumption or worry. A lot of times it's just worry, can we overcome XYZ? What do we need to know? And making sure that like before you engage in a research activity or even just in this like discovery phase, you're getting their baggage, so to say, their concerns, their things that they're curious about at that time too.
I like that. The idea of empathy behind this, right? Really getting to kind of those fears and concerns. I think that's a great thing to think about. Awesome. All right, this is great. I'm going to try to better affinitize these. I'll need your help grouping these together in the next one, just because there's so much out here and it's so great. So thank you. This is an experiment. Few questions. Yeah, how do you prioritize assumptions? How do you narrow down the assumptions? Yeah, how do you get assumptions from broader? Yeah. How do you prioritize these assumptions? Does anyone want to answer that? And narrowing down?
I can jump in. This is Jessica here from Minnesota, so not a local, but we're actually going through this right now. I'm facilitating a series with the team of cross-functional people that are trying to solve and define what is our actual root cause and problem around data governance, or however we're perceiving that. And for them, because it's such a big sticky ball of a problem, we have a lot of assumptions, and so we had to prioritize. Like, it was literally not an option. So we had been breaking things into kind of that idea of like known knowns, known, or like known unknowns, unknown knowns, and unknown unknowns, and then to further add a little bit more context to that, because I know that people's heads can tend to spin with that like whole framework. It was really around that idea of like where are we most likely to see a wide variety of answers. Maybe that's something that we need to spend more time in to understand, or maybe something that has the potential to really derail in a serious way the impact of our solution that we eventually land on. We'll spend more time there, but less time on something, vetting those assumptions if they are less likely to be a high risk thing as well. So there's just some of those criteria points that you can always define. And that helped us at least knock out 75% of the field. And it gave us just kind of one quadrant left to focus on. And that was helpful. And then even in there, you can go in and just ask people to talk through and prioritize even within that one quadrant.
That's awesome. Is there a name for that matrix? It's like I know what it is. I've seen it.
I'll take a screenshot actually and dump this into this board somewhere in the margins actually, if that's helpful for the group.
Yeah, that's
it's
awesome.
Kind of the blend of two different diagrams, if that's makes sense.
That's super helpful. Thanks for sharing that experience. I think there are other tools to kind of facilitate these conversations. That's one way. So yeah, thank you so much. There might be other ways. So essentially, you're trying to align on priorities. I think some of the things you have to think about is the business priorities and how that aligns with potential user priorities. So you're always playing that fine dance to prioritize. And so I think you'll need, it's a mix of both, right? All right, awesome. I see these great photos we have here. Yeah, what we know, what we don't know, what we know, you get the feeling. This is great, thank you. Feel free to dig into those a little bit later. We're just going to move on to our next portion. All right, let's see if this thing lets me move on. Please let me. All right, just a second here. I'm new to this tool as well. Okay, so now let's move on to this next, this is kind of like the meat and potatoes of research, right? So conduct research, it's really broad. Your research can take a lot of different forms. So I think this is going to give us a lot of different ideas, especially since research looks so different from team to team and person to person. But I combined kind of both the research and the analysis, and how do you do that together as a team, and think about barriers that you might expect during this phase, as well as solutions. So I have several activities that I'll start us off with, and then we can brainstorm together on new ones. Moderated user testing, right? So you can invite team members to participate, right? And to observe, and you kind of have to brief them and give them a set of rules and like, hey, please don't interrupt, save your questions to the end. I typically will give like a kind of onboarding spiel to help people feel a little bit more prepared coming into it, because it can kind of be nerve-wracking to newcomers. And also, I think what's important is reminding people, level setting on what you're there to learn, so that the notes aren't all over the place, that they're a little bit more focused. Playing back on that whole thing around discipline that we were talking about earlier. One of the things I like doing is assigning specific roles to different people. Maybe a greeter, head note taker, support note taker, photographer, timekeeper, question consolidator. There's all those different kinds of roles that you can assign to help people feel involved and to have some sense of ownership. That's one activity. Debrief, I think all of us have done this. Being able to share back what you learned after a session. And I've learned the hard way where you don't do the debrief after and you forget a lot of the details. So I would say don't leave debrief to the end. One quick, easy way to do this is, share your top 3 insights, top 3 most salient things that come to your mind, review your notes, have some heads down time, and then have a discussion. Essentially, all of these sticky note drills, the goal is not to have more sticky notes, right? The goal is really to have more insight. And so by having this discussion, we can start to see patterns and things that we're starting to see come out. And then we might do a deep analysis after this. So this is primarily for stakeholders to come and join and feel a part of the process, and like they're learning with you, but then you might do a deep dive after this. Cross case analysis, this is where you start to look at multiple different participants and start to look at patterns across those. And you might use different frameworks for this. You might use spectrums, matrices, something more organic like this, which is just sticky notes around certain themes, and start drawing out relationships, how things are connected using arrows, symbols, circles, squares. There's so many different ways to kind of get at these patterns. And I love doing things in a hands-on way where people are physically moving things, whether in a virtual space or physical space, because that adds to their learning. It adds to that skin in the game thing that we're talking about. So if people are kind of away from this process, they're not really learning and engaged in a way that they could be. So making sure that people are engaged while you're doing this is really important. And that's why those roles come into play. Is you can even assign different roles and say like, hey, can you be in charge of, if we're missing anything, can you be the one who calls us out? And can you be the timekeeper? And can you, and then everyone's involved in a way that is meaningful and contributes to a successful outcome. You're not just doing this just to, do the dog and pony show, but you're really doing this to work together, to form insight together and get a lot of different opinions or interpretations rather. All right, let's dive into some more ideas. So this is the same activity as before, but just we're on the next phase. So just keep in mind, we're in the conduct research phase and analyze and summarize learnings. So we'll put 5 minutes on the timer, if you don't mind. That would be great. And we'll do the same thing, and I'll ask you for your help to group these around themes too. After you get your ideas out, you can start grouping them. Thanks. Awesome. So I'm seeing some things around making it super easy, right? Like visual artifacts and color coding different participants. Being able to help people collaborate really easily by giving little tools to, I'm guessing that this is a specific place where people can provide feedback. This could be a template of maybe some screens that you have, and then people can write comments. Essentially providing people tangible ways to contribute, super easy. What else do we have here? Yeah, clear instructions, critical. I love this thing around frameworks. This is really interesting. Yeah, tags. Some of this is around, yeah, organization. Researchers are just so well organized. Always impressed. A mural board, love it. For each observer with the design artifacts on it. Yeah, so I think a lot of us are coming up with a lot of hacks and tools for letting people observe and place their findings within the context of actual designs. I love that. Affinity diagram, yes, 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 yes. Love to use the recordings to get all the verbatims into Miro, then all the team members can do the affinity mapping together. Ooh, watch party. Watch party for user testing sessions. Bring pizza and popcorn. Okay, whoever wrote that, I want them on my team. That's great. You need a separate room. Yes, an observation room so that you don't have people, too many people in the room to intimidate your users. Love it. Okay, there's one little loner down here. Using unmoderated tools like Maze for moderated usability makes it more easy. Yes, organization is super critical. And then I just have a little theme around organization right down here. Be organized. A brief crash course. Yes. 5 to 10 potential tactics that could be useful in getting answers. All right. Okay, love the new ideas coming out here. Let's move on to these hacks over here. I have not taken a chance or been able to properly map these. Feel free to group these as we go. All right, does somebody want to share? I think we have a little group up in the top right corner. Is that fair to assume? Anyone want to take a gander? Is that a group or is that just happenstance? They happen to be over there in that corner.
I think it's real.
Safety in numbers. Okay, please unmute yourself. Tell me more about this.
Your Minnesota friend again. That one really is just around the idea of like, it comes from conferences, right? Like two people can attend the same session and they'll walk away with different takeaways. And so I think like there's a benefit to having two sets of ears in a room, in addition to just the tactical things of like somebody can be a dedicated note taker while somebody else is solely focused on delivering a good testing experience. And then when you do the debrief, it's not just you by yourself with your thoughts. You now have somebody to soundboard and build off of and hopefully find some things that maybe you missed as well.
I love that. Not only having like diverse points of view, but you have advocates and allies who can fight with you at the table. That ownership, right? That's kind of what we're really striving for, is if we can all own parts of the problem, parts of the potential solution, I think that's so much more powerful. Awesome. Ooh, use icons and symbols. Can whoever wrote that talk more about what symbols they might use and how that helps with scanning? Love that.
Hey, Jamie, this is Kristen.
Hello.
Wrote that, and I actually got this from a template I borrowed from you. So,
Oh.
but some of the icons and symbols that I think are good just to have, like maybe available for participants, is like how to indicate if something's a pain point, maybe if something is like important or like, you know, a win. It just kind of helps for if you have like, you know, this huge affinity diagram of all this feedback, how do you kind of target in on things based off of, you know, maybe those three categories or other categories you're trying to use.
That's great. I didn't mean to set myself up like that.
I've used it before that, but I borrowed a template from you that had it just kind of built in.
That's great. Okay, I think the piece that's relevant to pull out of that is make it easy for people to scan and understand what is being said, right? So if you have certain themes, either putting them in the same location, or sometimes you can use color. Color is really powerful to group themes. Symbols are awesome. I know on Miro, it lets you put symbols. I'm not sure. I imagine this tool would have something similar, just to help people wrap their heads around it. So you can use analogies as well. That's super powerful as well. All right, know your user persona. Yes, definitely. Avoid stakeholders from drawing their own conclusions. Does somebody want to tell us about that? How do you do that? How do you avoid stakeholders from drawing their own conclusions? And do you remember, who remembers writing this one? Avoid stakeholders from drawing their own conclusions. Anyone? Maybe they're gone.
Hey, Jamie, this is Vi.
Hey.
I wrote that one, and it's tough. Sometimes I've definitely gone into some of these meetings where we are going over them, and they go in with blinders on of like, this is the obviously not an ideal situation, but can go in looking for the answer they want. And I found very often asking lots of questions and having them rethink it, or even discussing it as a group can be helpful in that. But that can be a tough one when they are the hippo in the room.
I love that. And this is why we have things like know your user persona, right? So like I love that. Like some people can come in super laser focused into certain sprint reviews or things or readouts. And so this is where you have the opportunity to help them zoom out and say, hey, this is the actual problem that I love this, whoever wrote this, remind to observe the larger scope or context in which a user is interacting. So yeah, just level setting that way. I love that. All right, cool. We have an organic group down here. Yeah, additional tools, right, to help people engage. So templates, super helpful. How you want people to document. I think there's a lot of really cool templates probably out there and ones that you can create yourself. How are you going to capture the insights and make sure that everyone knows what they're being asked to do? How are you going to store your research? Yep, good stuff. Plan for expectation management of what you will do with the user research back to the user. Will they ever hear from you again? Avoid making them feel like it is shouting to the black box. And then, yeah. Awesome. Let's get down to questions. Yeah, how do you get stakeholders to prioritize these activities when they're not dedicated to the team? Yeah, I would say that stakeholders, it's not really up to them to prioritize it. I would say as a researcher, you would recommend the best practice based off of what you know on the ground, and then you get their buy-in and by explaining it to them, aligning, answering any questions. How much time do these activities take? Yeah, I mean, that's up to you, right? You can design these in a way that fits your team perfectly. So remember at the beginning, we have to think about constraints, objectives, and who you have in the room. You're thinking about all of those things. So you might do some activities in really lean ways, and maybe sometimes you only have about 15 or 20 minutes here or there. Other times you might have a full hour. So yeah, it's really up to you. I would just be cognizant of those things and really what you're trying to get out of the activity, and make sure that the activity is going to produce the thing that you need. You don't do an activity just for the heck of it. You're going to do it with purpose, right? Curious about what's your current research tech stack? What do you mean by that question?
I mean, we have that was my question. We have a lot of cool different ideas that people have definitely shared out. So I'm just curious, are there certain tools that people are using or finding extraordinarily useful to accomplish some of them? Is it just the usual kind of standard ones that people are just making do with some sort of video recording things, screen recording things, Google Docs, whatever that is, or are there other things that people are using?
Yeah, I'll leave that open to anyone in the group. So she's asking, are there any cool tools for research for either capturing data or facilitating research? And feel free to answer, anyone.
I have one I can throw out there. It's sonics.ai, and it's basically a transcribing service. And I initially used it because, I thought that it would help make the like compiling of clips and whatever, getting user quotes a lot more efficient. But what I found was that, and the way that the software works is it transcribes it, and then you can kind of jump through and click on the transcription, like a segment of it, and then immediately play that. And what I found is that I had people like stakeholders, key decision makers that could kind of come into that cloud-based tool and then kind of skim for the transcript themselves, but then also click and hear directly from the user kind of what they were interested about. So it's both like a time saver and also a way to get more people to listen and be able to kind of dig through all the different interviews that you've done. And then of course I use Miro a lot. We were forced to go remotely for the pandemic and stuff, and I was like, how am I going to facilitate all these things? And so we use Miro as a really like a dedicated space with different categories for people to capture different types of insights. And we actually weren't able to record, so it was like our only tool that we could use to do that. And it worked really well, and is probably something that we're going to use post-pandemic, just because it actually provided really clear, concise, well-organized insights.
Awesome.
Thanks for sharing.
That's great. I love when you learn that you can use a tool in multiple ways and get creative. That's a really great use of Sonic AI. Yeah, that's cool. Anyone else want to share before we move on?
I think this, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. I was just going to call out a couple things in the chat, but go for it.
I've got a thing in the chat, so I will speak to that. This is Shannon. What's up, yeah, so I've got one tool that I used with a lot of the people on this call, which is DScout, and it's just so wonderful for all sorts of both like kind of surveys and also kind of formal usability. It's like just the greatest UX machine in my opinion. And then Dovetail is a really cool one that I'm using in my current job, which really helps you. It does machine transcriptions of any videos. It allows you to do tagging, which you can then sort of use to bring together to synthesize, because it just automatically draws from whatever tags that you've got, and then you can kind of roll those up, several of those up into an insight and have all of the evidence and video clips and et cetera available to you. So it's a really neat synthesis machine. So
that's awesome. Cool. Yeah, Joe, were you gonna say something in the comments, questions?
No, but I was just someone had put in there a couple different tools, so I was just gonna read them out, but I'm good.
All right, cool. All right, home stretch. This is great. We've got a lot of new ideas here. Moving on now, the last portion of this is really getting people to take action. Oh wow, I've got to scroll. I'm a total rookie. Okay, sorry. All right, last but not least, we are going to be talking about this last piece of research, right? Which is, you've done your readout, you've kind of formatted your findings, you've shared stories, you've gotten consensus. Now, how do you get people to take action based off of those learnings? Because if you've done research and you've done all that legwork of planning, recruiting, doing actual research, synthesizing, but no action, what are you there for? So I really want us to think about how we can help our teams take action. And I think this is something really generic. And so let's get a lot more creative than this, because I think a lot of us do this already. So we share our findings and we share our recommendations. Something that I've used is a checklist, and I literally put boxes as, beside specific tasks. And then I put people's names. And you will not believe the power of this. I had somebody get on a call later and was like, can you remind me what my name was on for that thing? So I was like, yeah, you should have been paying attention. But anyway, this is one way. I think there might be other ways that are less, maybe more democratic rather than like, hey, I want you to do this. It's maybe there's ways like talking as a group about action items and kind of letting people take on what they see fit, right? It's this whole thing about skin in the game and engagement. I think it's really important what Kaya mentioned earlier. So let's just jump on in. I don't have any other ideas on that one. Pretty lame. Let's think this through and end on a high note. So we'll put 5 minutes on the timer. So yeah, just a reminder, we're in the taking action after you've done kind of a readout. We got a lot of ideas here. If we need more time for more hacks, as I'm reviewing these, feel free to get your hacks on the right hand side, or just listen, soak up. We're at the end. Do what you want. I love this. Okay, so please feel free to group as I'm talking through this. I'm seeing themes around, assessing the severity or the opportunity. I think there's a lot of great frameworks mentioned here. The gap analysis, how awesome is that? You might have, I think story mapping was under that too. Oh, maybe it got moved. Oh, I was thinking user story mapping. The way that I'm thinking about it, let me know if you think differently about this, is it's a very like tangible, specific way of showing like current versus ideal scenarios. So let me know if you're thinking differently about that. I love this. So different ways of prioritizing by severity. All right. Another thing, yeah, so prioritization and severity and opportunity, I think those go hand in hand. So letting people prioritize them. And I think a great way of prioritizing is really setting up these frameworks for how severe things are. And that'll look different from team to team, how like severity, how you define that based off of like either jobs to be done on a specific, if you're talking about a specific website property, if it's kind of in line with your KPIs versus things that might be less important to drive towards. I like this theme down here, and I wish I could find an emoji of fire, because I would put a fire emoji here. Be a broken record. I love that. You're just repeating yourself, making yourself heard. No, have a rule. There it is. There's the fire. Thank you. No testing without planning to take action as a result. I like that. Have an agreement, have a team agreement at the beginning and say, no, none of this is not for fun. This is for action. And I like distilling principles and evangelizing, maybe shame too. Interesting. I'd like to hear about what shame looks like. Hopefully it's productive and nudges people the right direction without them not wanting to engage again.
That is hilarious.
Is my hope. Oh man, so many good things. Map learnings back to your planned roadmap, showing how plans have shifted. Yeah, and how research shapes business decision. I really love that. Along with prioritizing tasks, we might, as things kind of start to shake out, I like this, generate a list of next time or areas for additional research. So those will probably go towards the bottom. Oh, Jara's sharing super big love hearts. Please share those. Any reason you put those on there?
Just following you, highlighting where you're at.
Oh, that's me. That face is me, just if anyone was confused. I love this. These two, right? Like relating it back to the mission and values. What are the things that we're really driving towards? What are those key themes? What are those jobs to be done? This one's interesting. Put all the tasks out there. Tell folks they need to choose number one, but let them self-match. Can you share about self-match? What do you mean by self-match? I'm guessing it has to do with prioritization.
Depending on what you have for tasks or to-dos or your action items, you know, sometimes it's feasible to say like, look, we have like 7 things of follow-up. These things need to be summarized or a second pass on it. Like they're all things that are pretty approachable, especially when you're looking at non-research partners that have been a part of this journey. And rather than me being like, I don't know, Jerry, you take this, and Jamie, how about you take this one? I'm just like, here's what we have, guys. We've got 4 people and 8 tasks. I need people to take probably roughly 2. Like, go. And then discussion inevitably ensues.
I love that. So I moved it over here to the right-hand side, encourage ownership. And I think that's really important, right? It's like, this is not for you. This is not your load. This is everyone's load. I think that's the most important thing. So more ways that you can kind of take it off of your shoulders and distribute the load, the better. I'm also seeing themes around relationships and representation. Making sure you have a seat at the table, super important. Having relationships with your partners, your design partners, your product partners. Yeah, that's something that we're always trying to foster and maintain good relationships. Recurring communication, yes, all of this. Backlog, Gantt, yeah, Gantt charts. Give me a Gantt chart. Love it. All right, we are down to 3 minutes. This has been so good. Jara, is it okay if we just summarize these last ones and then call it quits? Or did you want to?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. You guys have held on for so long. Thank you so much for all these great ideas. Build the action items into sprint planning. Yes, 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 yes. You want a retro or AMA on the research portion? Okay, love it. I've never thought of that, an AMA. Ask me anything. There was something in here about make metrics work. If you're trying to beat your own scores, like your sus scores, get people competitive. I love that. And so I think I'm seeing over here, relate the research findings to the impact and the OKRs, whatever metric your team loves to use. So I think that's really positive in maintaining momentum, right? It's like, we've done all this. Look how far we've come, or look how much more work we need to do. All right, solid document. Oh yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say one thing that made me think of is defining kind of at this point before you take action, like what's the one metric that matters? So if you just decide, okay, if we take action on this, like how are we gonna measure whether that action was good? Defining as a team, like what that one metric is can also kind of create alignment. And then also you can kind of look back on it and see how successful you were.
Love it. Yep. All right. Diverse perspectives. I really appreciate that, right? Getting your team together, really getting them to take action. Building it into your process. Think about who you need to involve. Yeah, so we were getting kind of more tactical at this point in the process, right? And I think this is the hardest part, is because we've done all this conceptual work. So then it's kind of tiring to do this at the end. But if you can build this right at the beginning, man, that is super powerful. All right, this has been great. Thank you so much for your participation. Wow, we have a lot to kind of sort through and think through. Please use these as your own toolkit as you're evolving the activities that you use. Thanks so much for joining today.
Awesome. Thank you, Jamie. This was so good. It was good to hear from everybody's perspectives and stuff too, and learn from each other. Before you guys go, I would love if you could get your feedback just on tonight's event. Just give us a little note about what you thought, things that we could improve, you know, whether it's the talk or the format. We just want to kind of keep getting better and better and provide really relevant topics and things like that. So just give us a little bit of feedback. It'll be super helpful. And then I also want to kind of plug joining our Miro community. And we've been doing this all virtually, so it can be from any place that you are. And hopefully even when the pandemic's over, we can do like a hybrid sort of thing. So we really just want to build that community. So invite you to the online community there. And then next month in January, we're going to have Jason Reynolds, who is a UX leader, consultant, and educator. And his topic is to be determined, but you can RSVP for the event at this link. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Natalie, did you have anything?
Nope. I didn't have anything to add. I just wanted to thank you guys for coming. And we're also, as you guys, I'm sure you've noticed, we recorded this Zoom, so it will be up on our YouTube probably within the next week or so. So if you want to recap, you can either go back to the event page, find it there, or on our YouTube channel.
Oh, you know what else might be kind of cool? This board that we're on is kind of our community board, and we come back to it. It stays live, so you can come back and get the notes or whatever. But someone had added just a couple of visual artifacts at the very beginning of the activities, the like what we know, what we don't know. If you guys have screenshots of templates that you used that you thought were impactful, throw them on the board here, and then kind of come back over the next few days, and we can kind of see some samples from each other. You can just throw them on the board wherever you want, kind of up in this activity section. And that way we can kind of maybe see some tangible like visuals of what you guys use. All right, well, thanks again, Jamie. I really appreciate it. I'll hang on the call if anybody has any questions. Feel free to fill out, you know, the little network card if you didn't finish up, or any other comments. Thanks for coming, y'all.
Thanks, everyone.
Hey, everyone.